Featured in the New York Times, CNN, ABC, various podcasts, other media outlets. My next guest is one remarkable individual, shot at the age of 13 and paralyzed ever since. And it's not slowed him down one bit. If anything, it's made him that much stronger. Stay tuned. Good people, what's going on? Hey, it's your boy Jay Snipes, aka the podcaster of the people, back with another episode of Generation Motivation, the podcast. As always, I always begin this way. Thank you for watching the podcast. Thank you for sharing, liking, and hey, just thanks for your support all together. And you know what? And I was telling the gentleman to my left, I was like, I don't even want to get long-winded. I don't with my introduction because his story is so powerful and impactful that I don't want to take away any time from what nuggets and what jewels he's going to drop on you. I have Jeffery Williams, author, motivational speaker. I told him, I said I was going to come with the other slashes a little bit later, but I'm going to go ahead and slash it all up now. Hey, author, motivational speaker, fashion designer, real estate broker, just a all around, good dude, man. And you know what, hey, Jeff, let's
I'm gonna take that.
Yeah, hey man, look, and this is, normally I start off with a question, kind of prodding the interview, but with Jeff's story is so impactful. I wanted him to share his story, and then we'll branch off from that. So, Jeff, if you could please introduce yourself and share your story, and we'll talk a little bit about it.
Jay, first, I want to thank you for this opportunity to give me this platform just to motivate people, inspire people, because that's really what this is about. And, it's just an honor to have me on this show. And I want to thank the audience and the people that took the time out to watch the show, so, one day maybe they can be on the show and help inspire somebody else. Yes. And, I'm going to dive right into my story. I basically grew up, I was born in Ahoskie, North Carolina, and my mother moved to New York when I was 2 months old in Harlem on 149th Street between 7th and 8th is where I originally grew up. Back in the 80s, it was around that crack era where a lot of the people you watch on American Gangster and things like that, they pretty much had control of the streets. And my mother was looking to try to get us a better life. And she figured, she'll put us in Catholic school and in the Bronx. So we ended up getting transferred to Catholic school in the Bronx when I was around the 5th grade. And, she did that thinking, let me move them out of Harlem, move them to the Bronx. I ended up in High Bridge in the Bronx on 168th Street and Nelson Avenue, where I went to Catholic school, Sacred Heart. And, I remember when she first moved me out of Harlem, and I was thinking, I don't really want to go to a Catholic school. I have to wear a uniform, things like that. Right. And, my mother kind of set me down, as a single parent to explain to me, like, I just want a better life for you. I want y'all to be successful. It was so many things in the street that, you could go terribly wrong, and I was that typical kid out playing, enjoying life, feeling like nothing could get in my way.
Invincible.
You feel invincible. So
yes.
When I was 13 years old, one day, the last day of school on June 25th, it's a day that's like etched in my mind that I'll never forget. Because on that day, me, my brother, and one of my best friends, he said he had some bikes. It was the last day of school. We was gonna go to his house, and we was gonna go bike riding. And like that during maybe like in the middle of that year, right before the school year ended, I had just won a basketball championship. So I remember, being with my teammates and standing next to my trophy, which was like one of the greatest accomplishments at that time. So the Bronx wasn't so bad after all. Right. I was kind of happy, like, I started seeing my life progressing. And then on this day, June 25th, we ended up at his house to ride these bikes. And while we was in the house, his mother would always cook like a big meal. So he's like, Jeff, you want something to eat? I was like, no, we all right. I was just excited. Let's get the bikes and leave. So while we was waiting for him to eat, he went in a room and came out with a 22 caliber gun. And, you know, me watching Cowboys and Indians and different TV shows, and I was just fascinated seeing a gun. And, you know, my brother immediately was against it. So he started yelling at us like, you know, stop playing with that gun. Don't play with no gun. Like, you know, you don't supposed to play with no gun. He was a year older than me. But me and my brother always disagreed because we were so close in age. And, you know, I was that typical kid, a little hard-headed, never really did what I was supposed to do. I already was doing something I wasn't supposed to do because my mother told me to come straight home that day and meet the guy that delivered the furniture. And so my friend, he's showing me the gun. I'm like telling my brother, you know, calm down, don't worry about it. The gun not real. So then my friend was like, nah, it's real. And I said, let me see it. So he let me hold the gun. And I looked at it, I could feel the weight on it. And I realized that it was real. So, you know, I just hold the gun for a minute. But it just made me feel like some superhero, like, you know, a gangster figure or something, like, wow, I have a gun in my hand. And, you know, I hand the gun back to him. And I remember he started playing with the gun. So he's clicking the gun. And then I heard this loud bang. So I grabbed my head because he was standing a couple of feet away from me. I was sitting on the couch. And I remember seeing the barrel of that gun light up. And that light like came instantly, and I heard this loud noise. So I grabbed my head. And when I grabbed my head, the bullet ended up hitting me under my arm. So because he was standing up, the bullet went down on an angle. And because the bullet was so hot, it melted my skin back closed. So I wasn't bleeding anywhere. So when I looked, I felt weird. So I started feeling numb and I started hitting my legs. It's almost like when you lay on your hand and it goes to sleep. I started hitting both of my legs, trying to figure like, why is my legs feeling numb? So I remember telling him, you know, you shot me. And he's like, stop playing, because he had dropped the gun when the gun went off. And he's like, stop playing. So my brothers was over there like, I told y'all stop playing with the gun. So at that point, I wanted to leave the house because I'm thinking, you know, the gun went off. Somebody's going to call the cops. I didn't want to get in trouble with the gun. So, you know, I said, let's go. So when I went to get up, I couldn't move. So then I said, no, you really shot me. I got to get out of here, because I started losing my breath. And then I looked around. I was looking at my body to see if I saw any blood on me, and I didn't see any blood on me. So I kind of was feeling nervous, like I got to get out of here, like, you know, get me to the hospital. So he immediately ran and grabbed me and picked me up off the couch. And we started to leave the apartment. We was on the 5th floor. So because of the emergency situation, we just went down the steps. He just ran down the steps with me. But, you know, with the weight and, you know, the distance of us traveling down those steps, you know, it started becoming a struggle for him. And like he's about to drop me, but we made it outside. And then I remember we walked from the front of the building. He ran in the street to try to stop a cab. So eventually a cab stopped and he's like holding me. So the cab driver wouldn't let us in the cab because he was like, why are you carrying him? So when I realized this cab driver wasn't trying to let us in the cab, I said to the cab driver real quick, I said, I broke my leg. You know, can you take us to the hospital? So he let us get in the cab. I remember him putting me in the middle of the seat. He slid me in the car and he was on one side. My brother was on the other side. And my brother just kept saying, you know, I told y'all stop playing, you know, and now look what you did to him. So my friend is saying, you know, he's just trying to keep me conscious. And then I'm like it's like you falling asleep. And I keep going in and out of conscious in the cab. So I remember my friend just keeps shaking me. He's like, no, Jeff, get up, get up. You know, like, no, please get up. You know, he's like really doing everything he can to make sure that I'm okay. And so we finally get to the Lincoln Hospital on 149th Street in the Bronx. And when you can't breathe, like it seemed like the longest ride ever for me, you know, because it's like by the time I got to that hospital door, I was like sipping air trying to breathe. And I remember passing out at the door. When I woke up again, I was in the emergency room, like in the ER. I saw the lights over the bed. It was like these bright lights when I opened my eyes again. And, I just remember when I came in there, they told me to count 100 backwards. Last thing I remember was like 98. And I went out, and I guess they did surgery while I was unconscious, because when I woke up, I saw like a tube, looked like a water hose was in my side that they used to drain the blood out of both of my lungs, because both of my lungs filled up with blood and my lungs collapsed. So I had a mask on that I was breathing in, and it was just tubes everywhere. And I could hear my mother's voice down the hall. So I think the detective called her at work and told her that I got sick at school. And I wasn't that kid that really got sick a lot. So it was like my mother came, but she still didn't feel comfortable with the fact, like, I don't really believe that he was sick. But as she walked past the hospital room door, she saw the bullet hole in my side. And she saw my brother and my friend was down the hall. So she came in and said, when she saw my arm was up and she saw the bullet hole, she said, somebody shot my son. Like, what happened? So the detective, he came over to my mother and he said, somebody shot your son. And she's like, who shot him? So she's like, is he gonna be all right? What's going on? Like, she's like totally confused. So she keeps like asking the detective, please tell me who shot my son. So he came in the room and asked me who shot me. So on the way to the hospital, when we was in the cab, my friend was telling me, Jeff, please don't tell on me. So we came up with this story. He said, just say we was outside, somebody was shooting and you got shot. And growing up in Harlem and the Bronx, with this code of not snitching in the street,
right.
Even as young as I was, it's just something that's instilled in our neighborhoods where, you follow this code of not snitching. And it's so interesting being that young and watching movies on TV, and this code of the streets has so much value that you actually live by it, growing up in New York City. So it's amazing, but even in that bad situation, in my mind, I had to stick to that code.
Like, I'm not gonna
And
snitch when you see a shot, man. Wow. Okay.
and growing up, in these environments, it was just part of who I was.
Right.
Telling wasn't something that, we was raised to do. So I stuck to the story. And what ended up happening, my brother or my friend said I was in the building. One of them said I was in the building when I got shot, and two of us were saying I was outside. So the detective told my mother, I think one of them shot him. And he didn't know who they were to me. So my mother told the detective, that's impossible. That's his brother and that's his friend. So it couldn't be them that shot him.
Right.
And the detective said, the story is not matching. They actually have my officers out looking for this guy that they gave a description of that shot him. So I kind of like just closed my eyes and act like I was asleep, because I really didn't want to answer no more questions. I didn't want to face no more music. And my mother was real strict and stern, and we was really close to my mother. So my mother went back in the hallway and told the detective, give me a minute, let me talk to them. And she went and grabbed my brother and said, look, somebody shot Jeff. I want to know who did it, and I want to know now. I don't care about no code of the street. Tell me who shot him.
Right.
And he pointed to my friend.
Right.
And because my mother knew my friend, it was like, it just devastated her, because at that point, it's like, by nature, you come in there thinking whoever did this, I want them there, and I want the revenge. And, it crosses your mind. But now you're in a situation where this is his friend. Like, how do I even handle this? Like, I think at that moment, my mother didn't even really know how to respond to it, so she just walked away from my brother and my friend and came back in the room with me and just asked the doctor, like, is he gonna live? Because maybe 5 or 6 years before that, I had lost my brother, who was 6 months old. So You know, I really didn't even want to call my mother when it happened because I was with her when she lost my brother.
Yeah.
And I never forget that day, you know, at Harlem Hospital when they told her my brother passed, you know, at 6 months old. So I felt like she had already been through enough trauma, and at this point, me walking wasn't really something that was her priority. It was more, I don't want to lose another kid, you know. So, and I think my mother, looking at the age factor that I was 13, he was 15, you know, it was like, you know, the cop is asking her, what you want to do? You know, do we want to arrest him? Like, what are we doing? And my mother said, you know, they kids. Jeff could have shot him because they both was playing with the gun. So at this point, I just want my son to be okay. You know, I don't want to deal with that right now. You know, so um, they ended up. So I ended up staying in a hospital maybe 9 months after that total, and you know, every day my friend would come to the hospital and tell me he's sorry and things like that. And because I couldn't breathe, like at that point, I really wasn't mad or angry because in my mind, I was thinking, you know, the doctor told me the bullet was lodged on my spine. So I was thinking that I couldn't move and I couldn't walk because of the bullet being touching my spine. And he said it's touching a nerve on your spine. So everybody seemed so upset. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I got shot, I survived. In my mind, I'm feeling like, you know, I did the ultimate. You know, I took the bullet, you know, and I'm still here.
Right.
So I'm telling my mother and I'm like, don't worry, I'm gonna be all right. You know, when they take this bullet out, you know, I'm gonna walk up out of here.
Yeah.
And because that's what I had in my head, even though she knew the truth, she let me live with that for those 3, 4 months. And I remember on the fourth month, you know, I'm like weeks would go by and I'm still thinking like my friend is coming up there every day, like, Jeff, can you move your feet? Can you walk? Like, you know, can you move a little bit? Like, you know, and I'm like, no, not yet. You know, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, like, but it's okay, you know, I'm gonna be all right. You know, and it's like I had hope that was unreal because I really didn't know how detrimental my situation really was. So as time went on, every day I started to get worried because now it's like this happened June 25th. I'm on July 25th. Then I'm on August 25th. Now it's September 25th, and I'm still in the same predicament. So every morning I'm asking the doctor, like, you know, what's going on? I'm asking my mother, you know, why I still can't move. So everybody's still leaving me with this story where, Jeff, you know, as soon, you know, we have to do surgery. We got a lot going on. I already had about 5 or 6 surgeries, but they were more for like my lungs and stabilizing me and things like that. So at maybe the fourth month, one day, the doctor walks in the room and had my mother, um, he just has this look on his face and he's like, can he speak to her in the hallway? I guess he handed up my chart or something to show her the x-rays where the bullet was. And they actually showed me the x-ray where I could see where the bullet, and it was like a bunch of bullet fragments in my back, you know, where the bullet splattered. And so they take my mother and my brother out in the hallway. But me and my brother was so close, it was nothing me and him didn't share. So when he walked back in the room, they looked broken like a box of frosted flakes. So I'm like, I'm trying to read their faces, and it was so bad that neither one of them couldn't even look at me, you know. And the fact when I realized like that look on my brother's face, like he was just so broken, and my mother just walked back out the room. She came back and she said she was going to down the hallway. She'd be back, you know. And I guess her dealing with that reality, like, how do I even tell him this situation?
Yeah.
So I looked at my brother and I said to him, look, I've been laying here 4 months looking at the ceiling. I can't sit up. I can't do nothing. So I said, all I want from you is the truth. Just tell me the truth. That's all I want to know. I said, trust me, if you tell me the truth, I could deal with it.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me. He looked up and said, "You don't want to know what the doctor said." And I said, "But I have to know. I can't sit here like this, just looking at the ceiling. I don't know what tomorrow is. I don't know I don't even know who I am right now, you
Right.
know."
Right.
And he looked at me and just said, "They said you might not sit up no more and you can't walk no more." And then I'm trying to digest that I can't walk no more, but now it's like I can't sit up no more. Like I can't even imagine. So I'm saying in my head, and because I gave him my word that I was gonna deal with it. I mean, the words were so harsh that like I couldn't even I couldn't even cry because it was so painful.
Right.
So I just I just laid there, looked at the ceiling, and like wished they both would leave
Yeah.
so I could do what I needed to do to respond to that.
Right.
And that night when they left, I probably cried from that September 25th to maybe October 25th.
Yeah.
Just it was tears of like at 13 when there's so many things you're reaching puberty, you reaching like I never drove a car before, with a license. I would go down south, drive, when I was 6 or 7, drive tractors, lawnmowers, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in my head, I'm playing back my last moments of walking. I'm playing back that basketball championship. It's like I got my life on rewind and I only got 13 years of life. I'm playing back that, wow, like how do I get cut short this early?
Right.
And then my mind is playing tricks on me where I lost my brother at 6 months.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, I'm a little more fortunate than him because I made it to 13. He
Yeah.
made it to 6 months old.
Yeah.
Then I'm thinking most kids in New York may not make it to 21 years old. And I'm thinking, you know, like on my way to the hospital, I keep playing in my head. I keep seeing the gun go off again in my head. And I'm thinking, why didn't I go home? Why didn't I listen to my mother?
Right.
And it's like, no matter what comes to my mind, I can't hit that replay button. You know, it's like, where do I go from here? What's next? Do I ever have a kid? Do I ever have a family? Will I ever drive a car again? And how will I do these things if I can't even sit up? And then I'm throwing up every day. I'm laying in a bed, using the bathroom on myself, waiting for a nurse to come change me, somebody to bring me water. And just like your natural bodily functions, you combing your hair, you sitting up, like nothing that I would do so easily, all of those things were stripped from me. Everything that I thought was possible was impossible right now.
Right.
So at that moment, my mother comes, and she sees like I'm crying every day till one day I think my mother just got tired of me sitting there feeling sorry for myself, crying. And I remember my mother said to me, "Jeff, you're here because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So you're not here because I put you here. You here because you made this decision. You
Accountability.
chose
Right.
to go to your friend's house. You chose to play with that gun. So everything that you crying about, you caused this. So at some point, you got to hold yourself accountable for this."
Right.
And I know this may sound harsh, but you got to pull yourself out of this. When you wake up tomorrow, you still not going to be walking. So what you going to do about it? And if you got to be in a wheelchair, I want you to get in that chair and act like it's a Rolls Royce and be the best person you can be in that wheelchair.
Wow.
So then, it was that tough love that kind of stopped the tears, kind of made me feel a little better. Like, my mother got a point. I can't really blame nobody for this. First of all, I shouldn't let nobody play with a gun with me, and I shouldn't have been playing with the gun.
Right.
Then I looked at the fact that, so now, I'm sitting there and, the doctor comes in and he hands my mother some pamphlets. So it's like 3 different pamphlets. And I just see like nursing home written on the pamphlets. And I'm looking at her, trying to read her face and her reaction to this. Cause I'm like saying to myself, like, did he give her these pamphlets? Like what? Like, I'm thinking maybe she tired because I done seen her fall asleep in this chair every night.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is this something she doing or is this something he doing?
Right.
So at this point, and I really can't help myself. So I'm thinking like, wow, clearly the doctor has given up on me. And he's telling my mother, like, this is going to be a lot. His situation is really bad. You're not going to really be able to take him home. You're going to need to you can put him in one of these nursing homes. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this is a lot worse than I'm thinking.
Right.
And I remember my mother handed him the pamphlets back. And she said, you could keep those pamphlets. I'm not putting my son away. I'm taking him home. If y'all don't give up on him, then y'all can let him go and I'll take him home.
Mm-hmm.
And when the doctor left, my mother came to the bedside and said to me, listen, you see they done gave up on you. So the only way we gonna make it is if you believe in yourself, you're gonna have to help me help you because I can't do this without you. And I just remember those words. Like that night when she left, all I could think about was like, I got to pull out of this situation. Like this feeling sorry for myself is not going to really get me where I'm going. And if I don't do something better and my mother gives up on me, where's that really going to leave me? So at that point, I decided, I'm going to just do better. So every day I went to therapy and my mother said, listen, she took the remote on the bed and lift me up like a half an inch. I would pass out. And then she lift the bed up again. I pass out. And we just kept doing it till eventually she would walk in the room after work one day and I'd be sitting up. And she's like, see, I told you, don't ever let no doctor tell you what you can't do.
Right.
We're going to be all right. We're going to make it. And that tough love, and it became more about the people that cared about me, the people that supported me. Like the fact that my mother put that much time into, I believe in you. At that point, everything I did from that day forward was for me and my mother.
And man, that story just, I can't even find the words, man, to really describe it, because that's why I just wanted you to tell the story. Like, I didn't even want to ask any questions, and I didn't want to interrupt because it's just so impactful. Just having to go through it at such a young age, at any age, like you said, period.
Right.
To go at it, go through it at 13 years old when there's so much, more life ahead. Like you said, you hadn't been able to drive, you hadn't gone to the prom, you hadn't, what I'm saying? I mean, just even, listening to your prior interviews, I know you used to be fresh to death with the clothes and the whole nine,
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So it's just having to adjust of this stigma of being disabled as well. And I know you probably, at that young age, you probably weren't thinking about a stigma behind it. You were probably thinking about, I just want to get back to my normal life, my everyday life, everyday living. But we about to dig into it, man. I got a lot of questions I want to ask. You covered it so thoroughly. I can do justice by asking questions. I wanted you to tell the whole story, at least the first half of the story. It's so much more story behind that, because you've been in a wheelchair for 39 years now.
Yeah, 1982. Yes, 41 years.
41. I'm sorry, 41 years. 41 years.